So, ich habe noch was Interessantes gefunden und zwar Pottwale. Also ich finde die sehr faszinierend, einfach weil die so riesig sind und generell Meerwasserlebewesen finde ich ja eigentlich alles interessant. Und die tauchen ja so tief. Und deswegen ist es auf Englisch, aber deutsche Untertitel, also ja. Vielleicht nicht ganz, also mein Englisch ist auch nicht so toll. Mal gucken.
Like giant stone monoliths, pods of sperm whales sleep vertically in the water column, a
Oh,
totally otherworldly presence, their massive bodies floating in suspended grace. Our
das wusste
oceans
ich
are
auch
filled
nicht,
with
dass sie senkrecht so im Wasser schlafen. Das ist ja voll krass.
nearly 100 species of cetacean, warm blooded, air breathing mammals like bottlenose dolphins and orcas and humpback whales. But sperm whales are among the strangest of this group. Sperm whales are the largest toothed predators in the world.
Hm,
They live in tight social groups and are one of the most widely distributed marine mammals on the planet. They live anywhere there is deep water, from the poles to the equator. They venture deeper than almost any other mammal, plunging into the dark abyss in search of their elusive and giant squid prey. They dive so deep their lungs collapse, and yet they can stay underwater for nearly 2 hours. As they hunt, travel, and raise their young, sperm whales can be heard communicating with other members of their group. And they can hear each other hundreds or even thousands of miles away, because sperm whales are louder.
vielleicht wird es noch gesagt, aber wie tief können die eigentlich tauchen? 3000 Meter? Oh, oh, ich habe den Ton ausgemacht. Nein. Hm, hm. Warte, ich mach's gleich mal. War die Lautstärke eigentlich gut so?
Their clicks are so loud that they can easily blow out a human eardrum. Some say they could even vibrate a human body to death.
Okay.
Freedivers who interact with these whales are completely at their mercy, hoping and praying they don't get annihilated by sound. And their clicks aren't just loud, they're incredibly complex, leading some scientists to believe sperm whales could have a language more sophisticated than our own. Sperm whales have haunted our imaginations for generations, spurring nightmares in sailors of centuries past, with their impressions immortalized in literature by Herman Melville's Moby Dick. A creature feared, revered, and long misunderstood, sperm whales have luckily survived centuries of intensive and brutal hunting. And now they're slowly beginning to reveal the secrets
Ja, das
of their
stimmt.
mysterious
Obwohl die eigentlich so krass gejagt wurden, sind die nicht vom Aussterben bedroht. Krass.
world. 1,200 meters below the surface, absolutely no sunlight penetrates. This zone of the ocean is completely bathed in darkness. Here, pressure is 120 times that of the surface, a pressure so high it would kill most creatures. But this is also where a primordial battle takes place, a battle between sperm whales and their giant squid prey. No person or camera has ever witnessed such a hunt, but sperm whales are commonly found with circular scars from a giant squid's serrated suckers on the end of its tentacles. The indigestible beaks and other body parts of the giant squid also turn up in the stomachs of sperm whales.
Mhm.
To reach this darkest of hunting grounds, the sperm whale fills its lungs with one final breath and begins to plunge. Their bodies are
Ich
well
dachte,
adapted to this extreme
ja,
environment.
das stimmt doch gar nicht. Ich dachte, die atmen aus, damit eben keine Luft ist, damit die besser abtauchen können. Also eigentlich ohne Restsauerstoff im Magen tauchen die ab.
Where they spend about 90% of their time. it's not only giant squid that bring them to such great depths. They also eat deep-sea sharks, octopuses, and cuttlefish. The stomach of one sperm whale was even found to contain a species of dogfish that lives 3 kilometers down on the ocean floor, making sperm whales one of the deepest divers of the animal kingdom.
Oder hat ein Tier
But getting their
gefressen,
massive
was
bodies
das
so
vorher
deep
gefressen
is a
hat.
complicated process, especially since they're naturally buoyant. To deal with this, sperm whales have evolved something completely bizarre: a mysterious substance, the one that gives sperm whales their name. Spermaceti oil, which fills much of the head cavity, is normally warm and liquid. But when the whales dive, it's thought that the cool water solidifies it, allowing it to act almost like a diving weight to pull the whales down. This helps explain how they can physically get down there, but how can they survive it? As they descend, the pressure becomes so high the whale's lungs begin to collapse. At this point, the ribcage hinges closed around their collapsing lungs, squeezing most of the air into their trachea so that there's less gas exchange in the lungs, protecting the whales from nitrogen buildup. To compensate for not getting enough oxygen from their lungs, whales have a much higher concentration of oxygen-containing molecules, hemoglobin and myoglobin, than land-dwelling mammals. Having about twice as much hemoglobin as humans and 10 times as much myoglobin means that the whales are essentially equipped with a built-in oxygen tank, even when they're not breathing for more than an hour. But that's not the only thing helping them stay supplied with oxygen. They also have clumps of blood vessels near their brains, called retia mirabilia. These vascular nets help regulate blood pressure and seem to keep the brain well supplied with oxygen. Meanwhile, the heart rate slows in a process called bradycardia, slowing all other physiological processes so the body doesn't consume as much oxygen. That lower heart rate also limits gas transport around the whale's body. And this is critical because of a problem known as decompression sickness, aka the bends. When humans descend while scuba diving, nitrogen from the air dissolves into our tissues. If we then ascend to the surface too quickly, this dissolved nitrogen will expand into bubbles in our tissue, a situation that for us can be extremely dangerous or even fatal. For a long time, scientists thought whales must be immune to getting the bends because of their physiology. Their trachea is solidified by extra rings of cartilage, so that when air is compressed there when they dive, nitrogen is stored rather than dissolved into the whale's tissues. Surely that meant whales couldn't suffer from decompression sickness. But a sad situation in 2002 proved that to be untrue. After a Navy sonar exercise, 14 beaked whales died after beaching themselves in the Canary Islands. Autopsies revealed that they all had gas bubbles in their tissues. Whales, it turns out, are indeed susceptible to this insidious killer if they're forced to ascend too quickly. But scientists are still investigating what might force whales to make a rapid ascent besides painful noises. They might also be chased up by predators, or have some other behavior we don't understand or can easily observe. This inability to easily monitor what sperm whales are doing at such great depths is one reason that they're so mysterious. Even something as basic as their hunting methods is up for debate. It's not clear how the whales catch their prey. Sperm whales have teeth, but only on their lower jaw, which means they're not well suited to latching onto something.
Die haben nur Backenzähne irgendwie und das auch Elfenbein und so.
And though some species of whale have teeth only in the males for fighting and display purposes, sperm whale males and females both have teeth. In one rare video, a sperm whale is seen removing fish from longline fishing gear by shaking the line with its teeth, but not touching the fish with its teeth. These kitchen knife-sized chompers aren't really used for chomping. So what are they for? It's a question that's been particularly intriguing to Dr. Joy Reidenberg, a comparative anatomist and professor at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York City.
We do know from tracking devices that they dive down and kind of hang out in one area for a while and then come back up. So the assumption is that they're a lie-in-wait predator, that they're not a pursuit predator. And if that's the case, that they go down and they hang out somewhere, one of my favorite theories is that they open their mouth and they might have some bioluminescent bacteria on their teeth or something that their teeth glows and maybe attracts the squid to the mouth. And then they just suck it into their mouth. So the teeth may be lures. We also know that they sometimes rake the sea floor and use their teeth in that way. That if they just stick their mouth into the sand and swim forward, it's kind of like a plow. That plow is going to disturb things in the sediment. Those little animals, benthic animals like crabs and shrimps and stuff, may jump up and get sucked into the whale's mouth.
Sperm whales have even been found tangled in the transatlantic cables lying on the ocean floor, either because they were stirring up sediment or maybe because they were attracted by the electrical signals. It's hard to know for sure what sperm whales are doing in the deep, but during the limited amount of time they spend closer to the surface, a few things become very clear. Namely, that they have very large brains and very complex social behaviors. Sperm whales have the largest brains of any living animal, and possibly of any animal to exist on Earth ever at any point in time. Their gray matter can be 7 to 9 kilograms in weight, about 6 times larger than a human brain. Researchers originally thought toothed whales have such large brains because of their echolocation. After all, the non-echolocating blue whale is larger than the sperm whale, but its brain isn't as big. But more recent research in the fossil record shows that large brains came before the anatomy that allowed for underwater echolocation. The scientists instead suggest that large brains in cetaceans are closely linked to their social behavior. And sperm whales are indeed highly social. They live in matrilineal clans with calves suckling for up to 13 years. And all calves have a primary babysitter apart from their mother so that the mother can continue diving to hunt. All the members of a group of sperm whales will assist with raising young, but adult males generally leave their families to live more solitary lives. It was thought for years that these adult males were some of the loneliest creatures on the planet. But more recent research has found that many male sperm whales actually spend a lot of time with male friends, whether it's migrating, feeding, or sadly even stranding together. These social groups are tied together by sound, loud, intricate, and robust vocalizations. But how exactly do they make such complex sounds? It all comes down to their massive noses. Dr. Joy Reidenberg has been fascinated by sperm whale vocalizations for her entire career. And she believes that of all whales, it's the sperm whale who has the most impressive vocalizations.
About 1/3 of the sperm whale's body length is its nose. So it is the largest nose in the animal kingdom. And that nose is a sound producer.
And a big portion of that nose is what made sperm whales so valued by whalers, that waxy spermaceti. It was used in candles and ointments, and whaling in pursuit of it almost completely wiped sperm whales off the face of the planet. Whalers called it spermaceti because they thought it was sperm. It was not, and honestly pretty weird that they thought it was. As mentioned before, spermaceti is crucial in their buoyancy control and in their communication.
And the purpose for that oil is to take the vibrations that are generated at the very front of the sperm whale's head in that boxy shape, where air is brought to the very front. It goes through a pair of large-looking lips that are inside the nose that click, kind of like a pair of castanets. And as they click, they vibrate the tissue that is the lip. And that lip is attached to the spermaceti organ, and it sends a vibrational wave propagating through the spermaceti organ until it reaches the back of the head, where that click is then reflected off of an air sac that's on the front of the skull.
From there, the sound is reflected through a series of what might be considered condensing filters, where the sound is modified to be either a sharp beam or a low, quiet rumble. And this part of the whale has another stupid name.
And that particular organ is called the junk because it was not useful compared to the spermaceti oils, but in fact, it's probably the most functional part of the whole head because that's where the sound is modified in some ways, somehow modulates the sound.
And that final sound can be incredibly loud. A sperm whale can click about 236 decibels. For reference, human eardrums burst at 150 decibels. Our pain threshold is about 110 decibels, things like live rock music or jet engines heard from 100 feet away. Our normal conversations are only about 60 decibels. Sound travels differently in water than in air, so the decibel measurements aren't exactly comparable, but this is still insanely loud. It is by far the loudest noise any animal can make. Does that mean a sperm whale vocalization could kill a human in the water? Dr. Reidenberg says there have been no documented cases of this happening, but that doesn't mean it's totally impossible. Luckily for us, we're not the sperm whale's favorite prey. If we were giant squid, those sonic blasts might well cause some serious damage. And this sonic blast is just one of the many types of extremely loud noises a sperm whale can make.
The big males have this sound that's called the clang, which is a very, very loud, very intense, sound. It's probably advertising that, hey, I'm in the neighborhood. Come on, ladies, here I am. And then all the ladies come around and gather around the big male that has swum through the neighborhood, because it then becomes an orgy for the whales.
And yet males are hardly the only ones making such loud calls. Sperm whales have many patterns of clicks that make up their complex language. The most common are clicks used for long-range echolocation, like sonar. And then there's close-range creaks for when prey capture is imminent. And finally, codas are distinct patterns of clicks most often heard when whales are socializing. And these vocalizations are of particular interest to scientists. Sperm whale codas sort of sound like Morse code, and the patterns of the clicks are distinct among social groups, with each clan having its own specific repertoire of codas. These codas are the social glue that holds the clans together. Females use codas more than males, which makes sense when you think about how they raise their young.
No, it's probably social communication. It's probably communication with the calves. It's communications with each other. They might simply be advertising how deep they've gone so that the calf that can't follow them knows where the mother is at all times, even though the mother's farther away from the calf. The depth that the whale goes to will distort the sound. So by the time the calf hears it, it has some information about that distortion that tells it how deep the mother has dove. And that would give it some idea of anticipating when the mother's coming back up again.
And more than just signaling each other's location, researchers believe distinct coda repertoires represent their own unique cultures. Just as groups of people from different sides of the world will speak, eat, and dress differently, clans of sperm whales from different areas will behave differently too. And the more researchers investigate these codas, the more they realize just how much information could be packed into these patterns of sound. So much information that researchers are starting to realize that sperm whale language is perhaps as complex as our own. The first major hint that codas are not just instinctual and arbitrary noises is the fact that calves can take up to 2 years to produce recognizable codas. And before that, they babble, just like human babies. And recently, researchers realized that not only do clans use different codas, but the codas differ slightly among individuals. This could be a way for each individual to have a unique identifier.
Ich finde, die sehen halt auch immer so lustig aus, weil deren Unterkiefer ist so schmal. Schmal und lang.
AKA a name. The whales aren't just making noise. They are literally talking. When a group of researchers looked at the historic recordings of whaling in the 19th century, they found that successful harpoon strikes dropped by more than 50% after the first few years of hunting. That dramatic of a change can't be attributed solely to the skill of the whalers. Instead, researchers think the sperm whales were sharing strategies with one another about how to evade capture. Sperm whale codas may be the closest thing to our language we have ever discovered. And this raises an interesting question. Can we translate this language into ours? In a future video, we will discuss the ongoing effort to create the first interspecies Rosetta Stone using machine learning. What's already clear to us is that sperm whales have the loudest voices in the animal kingdom, and they seem to be using them to say quite a lot of different things. Understanding whales is an endeavor that will take generations, and an endeavor that will require utter dedication from scientists who will stop at nothing to collect the data that they need. But working with such large animals in the field comes with its own immense challenges. It's sometimes messy.
Most of the time when I dissect a whale, I feel like I'm doing it from the inside out. I get in the whale and basically am pushing things out.
And sometimes harrowing.
Oh,
I just was so happy not to be dead.
Stories like these are sometimes hard to believe, but they are the reality for scientists who spend their lives around these spectacular animals. And these stories are the basis for our new Nebula Plus series, Field Notes. I often talk about the science of incredible animals on this channel, and now we will get to hear from the experts behind the science.
naja, auf jeden Fall ist schon ist schon sehr interessant und ja, also Pottwale im Allgemeinen, die Meerestiere, egal welche, sind faszinierend. Ich muss die ganze Zeit gucken. Das ist natürlich geil. Okay, wenn euch das Video gefallen hat, lasst eine Bewertung da und bis zum nächsten Mal. Ciao.